The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to SIG Talk IT Operations. Today's presentations will revolve around Operations Bridge APIs and Hybrid IT, Blueprint for Applications Portfolio. If you're listening to SIG Talk, we're in the right place. And this is an ongoing monthly, bi-monthly session that we have to share with you customer, end user, solutions, success stories, anything related to using the Micro Focus tools in the ITOM space or IT operations space that you think is relevant. And we try to find folks that either have solutions that tie into Micro Focus and how they've used it to support their environments to be successful with the two tools. My name is Rocky Pisto. I'm the Vivit Engage Coordinator for Vivit, longtime LUG and SIG leader, working with bringing customers and users, partners, and Micro Focus people together to share best practices and to learn from each other. Today's presenters is Amr Fahmy. He's a senior consultant at Mani Corporation, and Bobby Allen, who's the CTO and chief evangelist at Cloud Genera. So we've got a couple of interesting speakers today. And just to let you know, our presenters come from all over the world. You know, as long as they're in the Micro Focus realm, we look forward to presentations wherever possible. If you want to send us some questions beyond the panel, you can send it to our Twitter page at Vivit SIG Talk. Vivit SIG Talk. This session is live, it's being recorded, and the recording will be available to all members. It'll reside eventually into our IT operations SIG space on the Vivit website. But for those that have registered, whether you're on this call or not, you'll be getting the recording that includes all the questions and the answers to those questions that came along. And speaking of questions, if you'd like to ask a question and we've got time to answer it, we'll do it during the call. If not, it'll be after the recording is sent out. So just type your questions in the question panel, which is right here. It should say questions and chat, and you can just type there, and we'll try to answer it if we can during the call. And I think with that, I'm going to switch over to Amr and start your presentation.
Thank you, Bobby, for your introduction. Just let me share my screen right now.
There we go.
Perfect. Yeah. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Rocky, for your introduction. Thanks for everyone who are attending this session. My name is Amr Fahmy. I'm a senior consultant in Mani. It's a HP Micro Focus partner. Today, I'm going to give you like overview about Operation Bridge and how we can use the Operation Bridge API. Well, I think Operation Bridge is the manager of managers that can be integrated with so many third-party solutions, and it can monitor end-to-end infrastructure of your company or of your customers. So, for example, if you want to monitor your hardware infrastructure applications, like Oracle SQL servers, these stuff you can be able easily to monitor your environment. And it can also be integrated with third parties and other monitoring solutions like Dynatrace, AppDynamics. Not only monitoring solution can also be integrated with other ticketing or ITSM systems like ServiceNow, of course, HP ITSM, Remedy, these stuff. However, in our also, I want to talk about the management packs that is available with Operation Bridge, that can be monitored most of the application right now available in the market. So as you can see here in my presentation, there's so many tools that can be monitored using the Operation Bridge agents or agentless as well. So and it's not only on premises; it can be monitored the cloud solutions. So that's mainly what's the Operation Bridge. So in our case here, I'm going to talk about how to use the Operation Bridge APIs. Well, most of the cases or the use cases that I'm facing with the customers, they might need to integrate with their unknown ticketing system. They might need to integrate with their unknown logger. So in these cases, that's why most of our customers, you know, they look for how to use the Operation Bridge API as it's the manager of managers, and how to send an event or how to update the events in the Operation Manager, as it's one of the most used tool for the NOC team, the Network Operations Center team. So that's why we face that cases with so many customers here or the worldwide. So let me dig deep more in, on the Operation Bridge APIs. We have two main APIs that you can use, or two ways of integration with Operation Bridge APIs. One of it is the REST WSUTL script. It's a script made by the Operation Bridge team, of course, that if you don't want to integrate with the REST APIs directly, I mean, if you don't know how to update the event, if you don't know how to create a new event, if you don't know how to create a new CI, if you don't know how to create integrations between the CI relationship, in that case, you need to use the REST WSUTL script. However, if you know the API's parameters, if you know the API's methods of Operation Bridge API, which is, I think it's quite easy for anyone who check the documentation of Operation Bridge APIs, you will find that REST APIs, that's what I actually prefer. So, however, in this presentation, I'm going to give you the example of these two cases. So whoever need to try both. Well, if you're going to install, for example, the Operation Bridge OMI on a Linux machine, so it's quite common that you will find the REST WSUTL script under this location. Okay, so this script actually have three methods: create, which is -c or -c, read, which is -r, and update, which is -u. And then, of course, you're gonna send the parameters, which is inside update XML. I'm going to illustrate the like more details with the update.xml, and you have to add your username and password of your Operation Bridge OMI, and then show them the URL of the event. So let's say that you want to update one of the events. So here is the use case. If you want to open a ticket with the unknown ITSM solution, so for example, if you want to open a ticket that one of the nodes is down, so you can just right click and then go to open a ticket. When you go open a ticket with any ITSM, definitely there's gonna be a ticket number. So you want to update this event with the ticket number that you opened the ticket with. So here is the case. You can just go from your Operation Bridge server locally and run this script, and just it's quite easily actually that you can just add your username and password. It's preferable to be a super user just to not face any privilege issues. And then here is the URL, annotation event URL. It's quite common also that you only have to change $event ID. So that's the only thing that you have to change, which you can get it from the Operation Bridge event viewer. On each event in the Operation Bridge, there is there is a unique ID. You can just take this ID and add it here to the URL, and also update your XML with the text that you want to add to the annotation. So people use annotation as like a note. If you want to add a note to the event that someone opened a ticket, what's the ticket number, when did he open the ticket, if it's resolved, if it's closed, if it's under construction. So this the things that people use the annotation for. So that's actually why most of the that's actually a use case why people use this WSUTL script mainly to just update the event. Not only update, as I told you, there is 3 methods you can just create as well as here you can update or read. So as you can see here, I just create a new annotation in the event and added there is a new ticket open with a ticket ID 123. So when you go to the annotation in the event browser, you will find the admin, which is the user that I created the text with, and when that is created, and what's the text that actually he put in the XML file. Of course, you don't have to create only XML. There's 2 ways to update the APIs. You can use XML or JSON, of course. So I usually prefer XML because it's for me it's easily to parse the file and make sure that everything is under the tags. So for example, you have to first add the annotation tag, and then followed by the author tag, which is the admin, and then followed by the text tag. Don't forget, of course, to close the tags to don't face any error with the when you update the event annotation, and then close the tag, the annotation tag at the end. That's it. It's quite easy actually. So the next thing is the how to integrate directly with the Operation Bridge APIs without using the REST WSUTL script. So in this case, I'm using something. Actually, it's a very famous tool which you can install in Firefox or Chrome or in Google Chrome, which is called REST client. It's very easy. You can use with any other tools. So here's an example that shows you how you can integrate with Operation Bridge APIs directly without using REST WSUTL. So as everyone knows that when you use the APIs, most of the APIs have different methods: post, put, delete, head, get. In this case, we are going to use post method. Okay, and then you can just add your OMA URL followed by /opr-web/rest/9.10/event_list, and then add here your unique event ID. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. Just add the event ID here and then followed by the /annotation_list. So this URL is common for all of the Operation Bridge Micro Focus tools. Just change the event ID and then followed by the annotation list. That's it. And then, of course, don't forget here to add your authorization parameters. So if it's going to be basic authorization or direct authorization. So if you want to add your username and password, just click here and add your username. It's different, actually. I don't want you to follow the same thing because if you are not using REST client, but in this case, most of the tools actually have the basic authentication, definitely. So what you have to do is only add your username and password of the Operation Bridge, and that's it. So going to the body here, all what you have to do also is to add the same thing that we added in the XML file of REST WS util. The same text, everything is the same, and that's it. That's you can not only in the annotation, you can change it to the custom attributes, you can change it to the title. So if you want to update the title, you can just /event title. If you want to change the, for example, or add a custom attribute. So slash custom underscore attribute. There's a huge list from Operation Bridge, which is, I think, it's very, very organized if you want to know which what actually attributes that you can use in the event perspective. I'm going to show you actually the link. So in this case, what you have to do is only add the body here, and that's it. So the reply, of course, it should be 200 or 201, 201, and this is the response. So it's gonna come back with the body that you added, and that's it. That's all what you will get from the Operation Bridge. Just if you need to know if it works, if it didn't work, to log your API, that's it. And here is the update that happens in the annotation list. So admin time created, and there is a new ticket opened with a ticket ID 321245, the same text that we just added. It's not complicated at all. If you want to integrate the Operation Bridge with the third-party tools, of course, it's easy. This is a very, very simple example that how you can use the Operation Bridge APIs and how you can integrate with the other unknown tools, ITSMs, log management tools, anything else, just to update your Operation Bridge API. Thank you, guys. And if you want to know the reference links, so please follow these links. It has all of the information that I just gathered from my tool. So you can just go here and check all of the parameters available for the API and what you can use and what you can update. And of course, if you have any questions, here's my email. You can just send me and I can work directly with you, no problem at all. And thank you, Rocky, for allowing me to give this session.
Oh, no problem. You know, one of the questions that I was seeing is for people that aren't used to working with APIs, what kind of skill set does it require or scripting capability?
That's a really nice question. Actually, I don't think you need to be like a geek or someone who knows the coding or programming or is very experienced with the object-oriented programming. No, at all. It's very, very easy. And you can just go through it and follow the instruction that is available on a Micro Focus document cloud file. So, and if you are asking for the scripts that you can use to integrate with Operation Bridge APIs, in this case, if I want to go back to my slide, just give me a second. So, if you can see here, I think if you are working on a Linux, so what you can use is Bash or Perl or Python. In my case, actually, I used Bash because it's like embedded in Linux, so that's why it's easy for me to use the Bash, and you can do anything with Bash. Of course, not the complicated object-oriented programming, but I mean you can use it as a script that can be I mean follow with the URLs, APIs. That's it. So if you are asking with what actually programming language a user can learn or can know before doing the APIs, I would recommend Python. I would recommend Perl because they are both working in Windows machines or Linux machines.
Great. We've got a few questions and I've got a little time, so if we can answer them now, that'd be great. How many external web services APIs within the EPI script? How many external web service APIs within the EPI script?
Okay, he means the if I don't missing, he means the event process intelligent in the Operation Bridge, or can he illustrate more about his question?
Okay, means API calls to external systems from EPI.
Oh, okay. So there is a way to use the operation bridge APIs. If you want to integrate with the external links, of course you can use the API from the tools. I mean, like under administrator and then tools, and then you can just follow the instructions. But if you want to integrate with a third party or unknown solution, definitely you can use the API with your Python script or Bash script. That's why here, if you follow the here, if you check the command that we are using, we use the operation bridge script. That's why through the API. So if you are going to integrate with other other third-party tools APIs, then I would prefer to use your REST WS script and do your own script. I mean, so if you're going to integrate with, let's say, Siebel ticketing system, you can use or you can create your Python script and at the same time integrate with your API and use the REST WS UTL script, and then update your operation bridge and at the same time update the ticketing system.
Sounds great. Let's see, I may have one more for you. We should be charging for consulting services, but syntax help on calling Python would be highly appreciated. Suppose we want to call external Python program from Groovy. Can you share a sample syntax or example?
Yeah, sure. To be honest, I don't have an example right now, but I can tell you what you can do. So if you're going to use your Groovy script through Operation Bridge APIs, well, that's definitely a very, very good thing. In our case here, we are not fully automatically integrating with the other third-party tools. Let's say that we are going to integrate with the ticketing system, and one of the NOC users just enter the Operation Bridge event perspective and right-click, open a ticket, that's it. So it's semi-automatic. But if you are going to use the Groovy, then that means that you want to make it fully automatic, like to be fully automated. So in that case, I would prefer definitely to do the Groovy. Groovy is very, I think right now it's very, very mature to use and integrate with your Operation Bridge CLI or your Operation Bridge API. And I think Micro Focus right now it's getting more improved in the Groovy platform and their Operation Bridge, not only Operation Bridge, also in the USMDB. So I don't have an example right now to show actually, but yeah, it's quite easy also to use your Groovy and call the RSW UTL script, and the RSW UTL script will call your Operation Bridge APIs and then call the other third-party solution API.
Right. We're going to answer
really
one more.
I would recommend if the audience just email me about his case, and I would definitely help him.
Okay, great. I got one more question that we can answer. The rest we'll have to respond to online. And it was, how do you substitute the real ticket number?
That's a really nice question. So here's the how I'm substitute. Let's say that you are going to integrate directly with the REST API with the other tool or even SOUP API. So whenever you are calling the any APIs in any other tool, there should be a reply. So if you are going to integrate, for example, with ServiceNow, if you are going to integrate with ITSM, HP ITSM, when you open a ticket, the reply will be here that the ID should be equal something like a number. And what you have to do is only get that number and update again your Operation Bridge annotation with that number. So when you post or get the ticket ID from your ticketing system, all what you have to do is just get that ID and update again your event annotation with that IP. Not only annotation. In my case, I'm using annotation, but definitely you can add a custom attribute. You can add your URL in the forwarding URL in the event perspective. So it can be I mean like there's so many varieties that you can do with the operation bridge event perspective.
Great. So Amir, thank you for that. And while we're going through the next presentation, if you can either attempt to answer some of these questions that are coming through, or we'll have it done before we send out the recorded session. So thank you. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And let's switch over to Bobby Allen. Great question.
Thank you, Rocky.
Super. You bet.
Okay, Rocky, let me know when you can see my screen. I'm just going to put a title slide up.
Yep. I see the title slide.
Okay, very good. So good afternoon, good evening, good day to the team, depending on where you are. I want to give you a couple slides, and then I want to take you into a bit of a demo to kind of give you a show and tell about how CloudGeneral typically has conversations with decision makers, people like CIOs, CFOs, CTOs who are making decisions around cloud technology and cloud strategy. And so the purpose of our talk today is to talk about the process we call building a hybrid IT blueprint. That is when you want to understand what it looks like to move or modernize your applications and to understand kind of best workload placement. We have an automation framework that allows you to do that. So let me give you some context about what we're about to dive into. So this slide is kind of a lightweight view of our architecture. And so how do we do what we do? How do we address this problem around workload placement? So the principle is on the left-hand side, we want to capture customer needs in a vendor agnostic way. Your expectations should not be defined in the context of a particular solution provider. So my needs around security, around SLA, around technology, around financials should be articulated kind of on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we have the capabilities of the market. Now, here's the analogy I use often to explain this. If you think about something like Expedia or Kayak or Google Flights, where you want to understand, I have to go to a certain conference in San Francisco, I need to be there at this time, I need to return at this time. Those would be your requirements. You don't want to have to articulate your requirements in the context of a particular airline, Lufthansa, Singapore, American, Delta, etc. You want to capture your requirements and then see what those look like as they're kind of compared to the different options in the market. So vendor needs or customer needs in a vendor agnostic way, market capabilities, and then we bring those things together through our multi-layered engine to produce essentially a scorecard. Because what we want to be able to show you is how well do those different options in the marketplace meet your needs or not. And you'll see that those will be things that can be public or private, inside or outside of the data center. And so really kind of embracing a multi-cloud paradigm where multiple options may be in play. Now, next slide. Let me kind of give you kind of 4 high-level items that summarize CloudGenera's capabilities. So we use this acronym CITE, C-I-T-E, to talk about the 4 pillars of what we do. So the C is for compare. And so this is what people mostly know CloudGenera for in the market. When you want to compare on and off-prem capabilities, you want to look at Amazon or Google or Azure next to an on-premises vendor like an HPE or a Dell EMC, we do this part very well. But the other thing that we're asked to do quite often now is to compare different flavors of service even within the same vendor. So for example, if I am talking to a customer who says that I'm a strategic partner of AWS, maybe I only want to look at AWS. Sometimes the question that they'll ask is, well, Bobby, can you still help me? Can your firm still help me if I've already chosen the provider that I want to partner with? And the answer is yes, because there's so many different options that sometimes you even need to compare services within a certain vendor. So for example, just talking about AWS, are we talking about the multi-tenant cloud? Are we talking about the dedicated cloud or kind of the new VMC or VMware cloud on AWS, which is essentially a software-defined VMware cloud in an Amazon data center? Which flavor of that are you talking about? We also need to talk about which level of the stack or which deployment model do we want to consume. Infrastructure platform, software as a service, or some combination of those things. And then we need to also look at pricing models. Do we want to consume on-demand pricing, reserve pricing, All of these things fall under the realm of comparison, or the C. Now, when I want to do this at scale, where I don't just want to look at one or two workloads, I want to look at hundreds or thousands, we have an ingestion capability. So we can import or export hundreds or thousands of workloads if necessary, and then automatically score those against multiple deployment venues. And I'm going to try to show you that, time permitting, today. The T stands for transform. So you don't want to just move a legacy workload to another venue. Sometimes you need to transform it first. What if I need to change the database, modernize the operating system, or incorporate container technology like Docker or Kubernetes? What does it look like to simulate transformation so that I understand where it makes sense to make a deeper investment to modernize and see if that's going to save me money or not? And then the final letter is E for enrich. Now, what often happens when we talk to customers is they can give us the stuff they're running, but not necessarily what those things cost. And so what CloudGenerator brings to the table is the ability to inject our industry standard financial data into your architecture. So if you come to us saying, I've got this much storage, this many servers, this software, we can tell you what the labor typically looks like, the software, the licensing, the hardware charges, et cetera, so you don't have to waste weeks or months gathering that data from your teams who may not have a mature chargeback or showback model to articulate the financial picture. So again, when you think about CloudGenerator, think about CITE, C-I-T-E, compare, ingest, transform, and enrich. And what I want to do now is I want to actually put away the PowerPoint and go into a demo. So let's go into a live show and tell so you all can see how we would have this conversation with the decision maker. I just want to confirm that you all can still see my screen. I'm in Chrome right now, and you should see something that says Cloud Assist in the upper left-hand corner. So let me take you through kind of a typical conversation. Very good. Thank you, Rocky. Here's how we would typically have this conversation with the decision maker. So my use cases are here on the left-hand side, and they're foldered by environment or by life cycle, because something that I may do in production could be very different than what I do in DR or dev test. And so for the sake of argument here, let's talk about a typical collaboration app, maybe something that's homegrown and very similar to SharePoint. And when I click on this particular use case, this leaf icon, you'll see that another column of icons is kind of unlocked here in the middle of the page. The principle here is that each of these icons is now a part of the conversation to break this down so that this is a manageable discussion for customers. So the first thing we want to take a look at is what's called user demographics. Where are the people located who I intend to serve? So if I have an international footprint of where my users actually sit, I can detail that by way of percentages around the globe. So I may have, for example, 10% of my user base that's in the United Kingdom, 20% in Australia, and 70% in the United States. So where do people sit, number one? Number two, how many folks are we talking about? And then number three, what is the typical utilization paradigm? So is this going to run kind of 24/7 all year? Is this going to run for half of the year and 15 hours a day? This is kind of how we get our footprint of users and usage of the platform. The second kind of set of inputs is what we call service level or SLA. So think of this as a generic list of capabilities that we map to each provider. So this is a pretty plain list with definitions, and here's the principle. I don't need to get stuck in the alphabet soup or the nomenclature of what geo load balancing may be called on one provider over another. If this is implemented as ELB or Elastic Load Balancing in Amazon and Traffic Manager in Azure, I don't want to have to worry about that detail. What CloudGenerator is very good at is establishing what we call logical equivalence in the marketplace. Does someone have a service or a capability that meets the spirit of this expectation? If they do, map me to that and let me know what it's called, what it costs, and if there's a gap, then highlight that. So this is kind of giving us a generic framework to make sure that things like reliability, monitoring and management, and so forth are mapped to the different vendors that I'm concerned about. Very similar to that is security. And so this is one that we spend a lot of time on when we talk to enterprises, because it is very important to make sure that we have a good, solid handle on what security looks like for different applications and which applications can go where potentially based on things like compliance and privacy. And so we have a list of 150 plus different items that we maintain in the market. And if I select some of these, for example, PCI DSS, PIPEDA, the things that I select are highlighted in the top. They're going to be defined, but more importantly, they are cross-referenced to every different provider in our database. So I can know definitively, for example, which providers have GDPR or not, which providers have PCI DSS or not, and this all comes out in our analysis in the end. Now, we do also look at how the solution itself is put together. And so here's an example of an application in my demo account. So the principle here is we've got a concept we call a tier or a virtual container that allows us to kind of group the compute, network, storage, and software resources. And so we can look at things, for example, like how much data flows in and out of that part of the application. Because this is one of the things that people often forget to bake into their total cost of ownership estimates. How much data flows in and out of the application may cost you significantly in some providers over others. We can also look at the definition of how these resources are put together. Depreciation schedules to make sure we're accommodating financial needs, number of nodes in the tier or in the grouping, hardware resources, compute, memory, storage, optimizations, platforms, and hypervisors. So I can get pretty detailed here about what my expectations are. But we also talk about not just the hardware, the software. And so this is interesting because not only do we talk about the virtualization of physical platform, we also talk about things like the operating system and the databases and the middleware, because those, number one, have financial considerations, software, labor, licensing, maintenance, etc. But this also informs whether there's a good technical fit or not. If a provider has the physical or virtual hardware that you need, but not the software, then that may not be a good fit for your workloads. And so as we back out of this, the other thing that we bring to the table is a huge repository of templates in the marketplace. So we have over 500 templates that we maintain. So the point is, if you don't know how a C4 8 extra large is configured in Amazon, you actually don't have to memorize that because we have a cheat sheet for you. All the different configurations, well, many of the different configurations and the different providers are captured here. Like I said, 500 plus across Amazon, Azure, Google, and a host of on-prem templates we have in here. Give you the capabilities. If I were to grab that out of my repository, the specs are pre-populated, so I can bring any of those into my architecture. But here's the bigger principle. The principle is I can make an architecture where I can borrow definitions from different providers, Amazon templates, Azure templates, Google templates, custom templates, and I can map all of those to Synergy or SimpliVity or Nutanix or the IBM Cloud or Alibaba or whatever other provider you're interested in. Again, back to logical equivalence. We know how to translate these from one venue to another. And this allows us to set up our scorecarding process. But before we do that, I want to give you a financial baseline quickly. So we want to give you a picture of where your money is going to go today or tomorrow. And so it's important to kind of establish a financial baseline with your customers, because I can't promise them that I can save them money tomorrow if I can't show what they're spending today. And so we give you kind of a way to articulate what your costs are, things that came from the app design or things that may be top down from a leadership level that may be spread across your data center. Now, finally, that brings us to our scorecard. I want to be able to give an executive summary about how this application compares to 3 or more different providers. In this case, I chose Amazon, Google, and IBM. And I want to look at a picture very clearly of how the pros and cons would play out if I put it in these different venues. And so here's what you get. So this cloud rank score is like an aggregate score that's almost like a credit score of how well this vendor does at meeting the expectations that we just articulated. So a higher score is going to be better. Part of why this score is higher is because if I look at the individual scores, IBM has a better security fit. I can also look at the financial implications. So the build your own score came from my cost tree in terms of what I'm spending today. I can also look at what I'm going to spend tomorrow in these 3 different options. But then we don't leave you there generically. We also get to a level of detail that actually helps you know what you would deploy in those different venues. So if I were to put this in Amazon, even though that's my second choice, if I wanted to replace this resource or replicate this resource, I'm going to run that as 2 C4 extra larges that are configured this way that are going to cost me this much. And by the way, I need to make sure I remember the other services that I need to tackle here. Different types of storage, load balancing, egress, etc. I can see the equivalence in the other 2 options. I can see other considerations like labor and licensing that we call carryover costs, and I can see the things that are missing. Amazon doesn't yet have GDPR, for example, or high trust. They also don't have vSphere. And so this comparison is what we've kind of expanded out in 30 to 60 seconds for everything you saw in that previous architecture string. But we also have the ability, if we want to add in other options. All right, so if I wanted to look again at an all Amazon picture, it's just like, again, back to the Expedia and Kayak example, it's just like changing airlines. If I know where you want to go and when you want to get there in return, bringing a different airline into the picture should be trivial. This should be something that takes a matter of minutes, not weeks or months. And so I can look now at 3 different flavors of Amazon and understand how those compare. I can understand if there are different transformation options that I might want to consider. So where are the cases where it makes sense to go to a higher level of service, to consume a platform versus infrastructure as a service, and compare those things side by side. This is part of what we do in our platform. And so to prepare to wrap up, this is a lower level comparison where we're looking at a particular application or workload, but we also have higher level comparisons. And this is really kind of the meat of the hybrid IT blueprint. So we produce a picture that gives you automated recommendations around treatment, placement, and cost savings. So what should I do with the workload? Should I move it? Should I modernize it? There's another category that can appear that says do nothing. Essentially, this is not worth the effort. Where would I choose to deploy these different workloads? And I can kind of drill into this to get some insights into where I would put them when I assessed it, what the recommendation is and what I might save. So this allows me to have a way to kind of stack rank my portfolio and understand what I should do when. And so this picture kind of constantly updates whenever you run those different scenarios or comparisons. And so we talked about the C. Now I want to talk briefly about the I. So here's going to be kind of a quick show and tell that we do. So I'm going to transition to kind of what we call our power user platform. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to populate a picture that we prepared for this demo. So we have the ability to kind of white label our technology. And so just to have a little fun, a lot of the people at CloudGener are based off of superheroes. We have superhero personas. So my CEO superhero persona is Iron Man, for those who follow the Avengers, and mine is Captain America. So we're going to pretend that we're going to help Marvel Studios figure out where to run their applications, but we want to populate this using automation, not manually. So here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to use our API-driven framework to populate this picture. I'm going to load up 600 different assets and automatically score those in the next 5 minutes before we wrap up this call. So here's what we do. So I'm going to bring in, like I said, about 600 different assets across 15 or so different applications. I'm going to load these up into this account. So you're going to see this progress bar that starts to populate as I'm loading up the Marvel account. And so after I load these up, I'm going to automatically score these against different venues and produce a hybrid IT blueprint in a matter of minutes. Now, what's the principle? The principle is, if you're a customer and you want to understand the best place and the best way to run your workloads, then this is the way that you can engage a company like us that has automation. Now, the way this ties into Micro Focus is we've integrated with their hybrid cloud automation suite, because Micro Focus talks to us as a way to achieve the vision of dynamic workload placement. So think about a case where you want to spin up a HIPAA-compliant workload with 4 nines of availability and automated backup. CloudGener has a pulse on the market, and so we have the ability to send that information back to Micro Focus software to understand the best way to deploy those applications. And so since we keep that updated all the time, we're kind of part of the intelligence that powers their hybrid cloud management suite to understand the best place to deploy your applications at that point in time. So step 1 is done. We've incorporated all of our use cases into our software. Now we're scoring it against these 3 different venues. And I purposely made a mistake here so we can see how easy it is to revisit this picture. This becomes something that's almost addictive to end customers, because a lot of enterprises have questions and they have answers. The difference is these are questions and answers that can be addressed in minutes, while you go to lunch, while you go get your coffee, not something that takes weeks or months and then maybe just results in PowerPoint that comes from consulting. This is a living, breathing picture that we want to create based on what happens in the market. So I go back to my Marvel instance, I refresh this, and I have a picture around how and where to deploy those applications. So I've looked at 3 different public providers, but I made a mistake on purpose. The CIO that I'm talking to wants to look at a true hybrid cloud scenario. So what I really want to do is I want to incorporate the VMC on AWS for 3-year reserve pricing at these kind of overcommit levels. And I want to also incorporate a Synergy all-flash configuration. And so I just rerun the analysis. I bring the data in one time. I project it now against different outputs or different providers. It's going to rebuild that picture. And what you're going to find is I may have a different blueprint, if you will, a different hybrid IT blueprint around the strategy for how to deploy those different workloads across those different applications. So this will be done in another minute or so. We'll be able to go back and look at our picture. That's our high-level leadership view on the dashboard, and we can drill down into any of those use cases we want to interrogate to talk to a team around how to deploy that application. So this is kind of the meat of our process. I'm going to get close to wrap up, so we have a couple minutes to take questions if there are any from the audience. But the principle is consider Cloud General, consider Micro Focus. If you want to think about hybrid IT, if you want to think about how to leverage the multi-cloud world effectively, if you want to think about dynamic workload placement and transformation, this is really the way to attack that problem. So as this wraps up, I'm going to go back to our view for Marvel. I'm going to refresh the screen and show you how the picture has now changed. So this was our prior picture with 3 public providers only, and we had an opportunity for a 14% cost savings. As I refresh this to show the analysis we just completed, this is now a different picture. You can see the slice of the portfolio that would go to these different providers, and you can understand what it looks like from a savings opportunity to achieve that. So it's 11:48 Eastern. Rocky, let me hand it back to you to see if we have any questions, and hopefully people were able to follow what we've done so far.
Bobby, no, that's great. That's great. I think we're always looking for the ROI, and when you've got that much analysis to be able to do that, that's pretty outstanding. So yeah, got a few questions so far from my buddy Mike Procopio. What is the importance to know what country the user sits?
Yeah, great question. So this is important because the countries where the users sit has to do with where the data is going. So for example, if I go back to my demo example that I talked about before, this is important because if I have servers that are sitting in Virginia, for example, right, in Amazon East, if I'm sending data to New York, that's one thing. If I'm sending that data to Singapore, that's very different. It affects your egress charges. So international egress is typically going to be more expensive than egress within a nation. And that's one of those hidden charges that people often forget about when they're looking at the TCO. So back to this again. So I'm assuming that my servers sit in the United States, but I have users in the US and I have users in Australia. So since 20% of my users sat in Australia, there's a different pricing paradigm that I need to apply to that portion of the data that may be going across the pond. And so in our paradigm, I can specify where the servers are, but I can also specify if I wanted to simulate what if the servers sat in Sydney, I can do that as well. So I can kind of control both dials. Where are the people and where are the services, and compare those two if I want to.
Great, great. Is the tool SaaS or does one purchase a license for on-prem?
Yeah, great question. It's a SaaS platform. And so what we do, similar to what you saw for Marvel, is that we would actually carve off kind of a branded instance. So you see this is marvel.cloudgeneral.com. We would carve off whatever the brand of the company is, acme.cloudgeneral.com, and it would have your logo, your providers that you choose, and that's also where we can incorporate things like your discounts and your ELA agreements with the different providers to truly make it a customized picture.
Great. On comparison, can the tool show on-prem costs versus cloud architecture costs?
Absolutely. So for example, and again, I apologize if we're trying to use our time quickly, I might look at something like this. So sometimes what people want to do is they want to show what am I spending today? I might show what I might choose to purchase in my data center tomorrow, like a Synergy. I might choose what I might choose to consume outside of my data center, like an Amazon. And so when this finishes, I'm going to actually tune this up a little bit differently. So the same technology that we use, so here's what I might purchase tomorrow. Here's what I could run outside the data center. But I could also choose to do a picture like this. I can use what we call our cloud adopt technology that I didn't get to go into much today. I can model my internal private cloud. So I can make a picture that looks like this. I can model what I'm doing today and what I might purchase tomorrow inside and outside my data center and put those in the same view. So this can be a combination, really kind of a hybrid cloud scenario where I might choose to put it in different places. And I can have different kind of pricing paradigms in here, right? So this is kind of a CapEx picture. This is an OpEx picture, and this could be a mix of what I'm doing today in my data center. And I can actually turn this into something that can be downloaded, right? Because I can actually socialize this with my peers. So I can have something that I can put in the hands of people that might want to poke holes in this to understand how these details come out. So this is very, very doable and is a very popular paradigm in our software.
No, great. And just so everybody knows, you'll get a copy of the deck provided by both speakers. So Bobby, thank you. I think we can wrap it up at this point. And that means I get the screen back, don't I, Anne Marie? There we go. Got it. All right, let me get in the right place. So again, thanks for your questions. If you've got more, please send them, or you can use our SIG Talk Twitter site for questions as well. We'll try to get everything answered in the recorded session that we'll be sending out to you after the fact. Just so you know, there's some upcoming Vivit webinars, one on October 3rd around how to turn a software tester into a learning and development champion with virtually no effort. Okay. Webinar on Founders Spotlight Series, Vivit leader Matt Engler. So that's coming October 3rd. And then on the 9th, there's a SIG Talk on the DevOps group with, keep clicking the wrong way, back. Oh, well, go back. There we go. On the DevOps and performance testing powered by voice. And then I think on October 20th or so, there's another event on the Ops Bridge SIG as well. And for those of you in the DC area and you're in security, or people in your organization are into the micro-focus security space, major event that they have every year in the DC area that brings security specialists together to hear from Micro Focus and from partners and independent presenters on where cybersecurity is going. This is the former Protect conference, and just a little more engaged into a lot of different areas. So you can register by clicking on the register now, and make sure you use the Vivit member link. Helps keep track of how many from our group are going. So thanks everyone for attending today's SIG Talk on IT operations. Thank my speakers for a great job, and thank the listeners for providing some great questions so that we can all learn from each other. And please take the survey. And if, again, I can't tell you more emphatically that if you're an end user, or if you're a partner that's got an end user that's got a story to tell, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes about something they've done to make the Micro Focus solution work better, please share it. Join us. You can speak. Again, our typical session is 12 to 18 minutes. If there's time, we let it go longer. And just to share what you're doing with the technology that may be a little unique, or at least it was a gotcha moment for you as well. So feel free to reach out and help us get what you're doing out to the rest of your peers. And it's a great way to network, great way, good exposure for you to present. And so really appreciate that. And with that, I want to thank everyone, and we are done. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.